Peter Kürten, known as the Vampire Killer or the Monster of Düsseldorf, was once the terror of the German people. By day, he was a middle-aged man with a harmless appearance, but when night fell, he became a cold-blooded and ruthless serial killer. From 1929 to 1930, at least 9 people were murdered, but police suspected the actual number was much higher. He had no fixed type of victim. Anyone walking alone at night could become his target. But what turned Peter Kürten into a bloodthirsty monster? More importantly, how did he commit his crimes? Do not take your eyes off the screen. This video will reveal chilling secrets and the darkest, most dangerous corners you have never seen. Like and subscribe to our channel to uncover the mysteries of Germany's most terrifying two-faced killer. On May 26, 1883, Peter Kürten was born into a poor family, the son of an alcoholic couple in Mülheim, Cologne, Germany. Before Peter Kürten was born, his parents had 2 children, but both died very young. As a result, he became the eldest child in the family, a position that unintentionally made him his father's #1 abuse victim. Peter Kürten's family lived crowded in a tiny apartment with only 1 bedroom. His father was a violent man who frequently abused his wife and children, especially when he was drunk. At the age of 13, Peter Kürten witnessed his father forcing his mother or sister into deviant acts right in front of the other family members. This event is believed to be a major turning point in his life, leaving a profound impact on Peter Kürten's psychology. In 1894, Peter Kürten's father was sentenced to 15 months in prison for repeatedly abusing his daughter. Kürten's mother decided to separate and took the children to Düsseldorf to start a new life. However, after his release from prison, he returned and continued living with his wife and children. The people in the neighborhood where Peter Kürten grew up had little impression of him. They rarely saw him cheerful or sociable like other children. He was quiet and withdrawn. Throughout his teenage years, Kürten repeatedly ran away from home, wandering the streets and associating with delinquents. At the age of 13, Peter Kürten started dating a girl his age. He longed for love and connection. However, due to his inability to express affection and his occasional extreme behavior, Peter Kürten was harshly rejected. To satisfy his deviant desires, Kürten engaged in inappropriate acts with sheep, pigs, and goats in a local stable. Later, Peter Kürten claimed to feel the most excited when attacking them right before the climax. In 1897, at the age of 14, Kürten dropped out of school. Kürten's father advised him to learn a trade and guided him toward a career in car repair. However, after 2 years of working, Kürten stole a total of 300 marks from his employer and fled to Koblenz. There, Peter Kürten began a short-lived relationship with a prostitute who was 2 years older than him. By 1899, at the age of 16, Kürten ran away from home because he could no longer endure the beatings from his father. Peter Kürten was classified as a delinquent and had to go to prison multiple times for theft. Only 3 months after being released from prison in 1899, Kürten resumed his theft activities. On May 25, 1913, while breaking into a tavern in Mülheim am Rhein, he came across a 9-year-old girl named Christine Klein sleeping in bed. Kürten overpowered the child and then used a pocket knife to injure her. Kürten felt exhilarated as he watched the red liquid flow from the wound, dripping onto the floor next to the bed and onto his hands. The next day, Kürten returned to Cologne and went to a tavern opposite the place where he had murdered Klein, intending to listen to the locals' reactions to the crime. In the weeks following Klein's funeral, Kürten occasionally visited Mülheim am Rhein to visit the child's grave. He admitted feeling aroused whenever he touched the soil covering the grave. During the trial for Christine Klein's case, Klein's uncle was suspected due to a prior argument with the victim's parents. However, he was exonerated and released due to a lack of evidence. In July 1913, Peter Kürten broke into a house in Düsseldorf with the intent to commit theft. He discovered Gertrude Franken, a 17-year-old girl, sleeping in bed. Kürten murdered the victim and quickly escaped without leaving any traces. When World War I began, Kürten was conscripted into military service, but unable to adapt to Mila discipline, he deserted. Shortly after, in 1921, he was imprisoned again for crimes related to sexual harassment, violence, and theft. The violent environment in prison made Kürten even more brutal and out of control. After being released from prison, Kürten moved to Altenburg, Germany, and lived with his sister. Through his sister, Kürten became acquainted with a woman 3 years older than him named August Scharf. She was the owner of a candy shop and had previously worked as a prostitute. Previously, Scharf had been convicted in connection with the death of her fiancé. Initially, Kürten posed as a former prisoner of war to approach August Scharf. 2 years later, Peter Kürten and August Scharf got married. Kürten secured a stable job and also became an active trade union official. In 1925, Kürten and Scharf returned to Düsseldorf, where Peter Kürten had affairs with 2 women, a maid named Tiede and a servant named Mek. In their relationships with Peter Kürten, Tiede and Mek often felt excessively controlled. Unable to endure it any longer, Tiede reported Kürten to the police, claiming that he had assaulted her, while Mek also accused him of abuse. Shortly after, Kürten was sentenced to 8 months in prison for coercion and threats. He served 6 months, with the condition that he leave Düsseldorf. Later, Kürten successfully appealed and was allowed to remain in the city. In Düsseldorf, Peter Kürten began a spree of continuous crimes, plunging the city into terror and suffering for an extended period. On February 3, 1929, Kürten followed a middle-aged woman named Apollonia Kuhn. Waiting until Kuhn reached a deserted road, he suddenly lunged at her, grabbed the lapel of her coat, and shouted, "Do not resist! Do not scream!" Kürten then dragged her into nearby bushes and attacked her with a sharp object, inflicting 24 wounds. Apollonia Kuhn survived, but could not remember the face of her attacker. A few weeks later, on February 8th, the Düsseldorf City Police discovered the body of a 9-year-old girl named Rosa Oliger burned beneath a fence. 5 days later, on February 13th, Kürten murdered a 45-year-old mechanic named Rudolf Scheer in the Flingern Nord suburbs, causing 20 severe wounds, primarily to the head, back, and eyes. After the police discovered Scheer's body, Kürten returned to the crime scene to approach the investigating officers. He deliberately provided false information to a detective, claiming he had heard about the case through a telephone call. Despite the age and gender differences of the 3 victims, all 3 attacks occurred at dusk in the Flingern district of Düsseldorf. Each victim was attacked with a knife in a successive manner, with at least 1 wound inflicted on the temple area. Additionally, the police discovered that the perpetrator exhibited bizarre behavior, savoring every drop of the red liquid flowing from the victim's neck wound after the attack. Moreover, the perpetrator's random selection of victims led criminologists to determine that he was an unpredictable and abnormal offender. Local police conducted an extensive investigation and ultimately arrested a man named Strubert, who was diagnosed with a mental illness. This man took responsibility for all of Kürten's crimes and was convicted, temporarily bringing relief to the community. However, that relief did not last long. In August 1929, a new series of victims emerged in Düsseldorf, all of whom had been attacked with a knife and died from blood loss. Peter Kürten approached a young woman named Maria Hahn, whom he described as a girl looking for marriage. On August 11th, he took her to the Neanderthal district of Düsseldorf under the guise of a date. When they reached a secluded field, Kürten suddenly attacked Maria Hahn. She pleaded for her life, but he was amused by her fear. He repeatedly assaulted her chest and head, restrained her to make breathing difficult, and even sat on her body to observe her reactions. After enduring an hour of torture, Maria Hahn gradually lost consciousness and showed no signs of life. Fearing that his wife would suspect him due to bloodstains on his clothes, Kürten decided to hide her body in a cornfield. However, weeks later, he returned to the crime scene with the intention of staging a terrifying scene to attract public attention with a fake crucifixion. Due to difficulties in moving the body, he was forced to abandon his plan and left the corpse at the original location. Later, Peter Kürten returned to the burial site, embracing and caressing Maria Hahn's corpse. In the following weeks, he frequently visited the grave, clearing weeds and feeling satisfaction as he thought about the victim's body. 3 months after the Maria Hahn case, Kürten sent an anonymous letter to the police. In the letter, Peter Kürten confessed to the crime and included a rough map indicating the burial site of Maria Hahn. On November 15, 1929, police found Maria Hahn's body exactly as described in the letter. After murdering Maria Hahn, Peter Kürten changed his modus operandi and used different weapons to mislead the police into believing multiple perpetrators were at large. This period marked an escalation in his level of danger and deviant behavior. In the early morning of August 21st, Kürten carried out 3 consecutive knife attacks on 3 victims. All 3 survived and reported that the attacker did not say a word before striking. 3 days later, at the Fleay fairground, Kürten followed 2 foster sisters, a 5-year-old girl and a 14-year-old girl, as they walked home from the fair. Peter Kürten lured the 14-year-old, Louisa Lenzen, away by promising to buy cigarettes and give her 20 pfennigs. Meanwhile, he kidnapped the 5-year-old, Gertrude Hamaker, restrained her until she lost consciousness, then killed her and hid the body in a bean field. When Lenzen returned, he repeatedly stabbed her, killing her on the spot. He then proceeded with horrific acts, demonstrating his obsession with blood and victims. The next day, Kürten approached a 27-year-old maid named Gertrude Schulte and bluntly proposed an intimate relationship. When she refused, he furiously shouted, "All right, you will pay for this," and proceeded to attack her head, neck, shoulders, and back. Fortunately, Schulte survived, but she could not provide a clear description of Peter Kürten, only estimating that he was around 40 years old. After switching from a knife to a hammer, Peter Kürten became increasingly brutal. On September 30, 1929, Kürten met Ida Reuter, a 31-year-old maid, at Düsseldorf station. Peter Kürten convinced her to accompany him to a cafe, then lured her to Hofgarten near the Rhine River. At the scene, he repeatedly struck Ida's head with a hammer. Taking advantage of Ida losing consciousness, he continued committing wrongful acts. When Ida regained consciousness and begged for mercy, he coldly continued attacking her until she stopped moving. Ida Reuter was left at the scene in critical condition. Not stopping there, at 10 p.m. on October 11, 1929, Peter Kürten approached Elisabeth Dorier, a 22-year-old maid, outside a theater. He invited her for a drink at a cafe before they boarded a train to Grafenberg. The next morning, Elisabeth was found near the Kleine Düssel River, unconscious, and she passed away a day later due to severe temporal wounds. Initial evidence at the scene suggested that Elisabeth died from a skull fracture. By late summer 1929, the shocking murders by the vampire of Düsseldorf had garnered significant national and international attention. Due to the brutality of the crimes, the diversity of victims, and the varied attack methods, both the police and the media speculated that a criminal group might be behind these crimes. The Düsseldorf police collaborated with surrounding forces, launching a nationwide investigation. Over 9,000 individuals were questioned, and 2,650 leads were thoroughly examined, but no one could be convicted. However, by the end of 1929, the Düsseldorf police still had not identified the real culprit. Until May 14, 1930, in the afternoon at Düsseldorf station, Maria Budlik, a 20-year-old woman, arrived on a train from Cologne. She was looking for a place to stay and a job, appearing confused as she stepped into an unfamiliar city. A man approached Maria Budlik with a friendly smile. "Do you need help? I know a nearby inn." Although she felt uneasy, Budlik had no other choice and agreed to follow the stranger. The man led her through deserted streets, and her anxiety grew when she realized he was not taking her to an inn as promised, but toward a dark park. As Budlik and the stranger began to argue, Peter Kürten approached them, asking if Budlik was being harassed. When Budlik nodded, the stranger panicked and left. Kürten invited Maria Budlik to his apartment on Mettmanner Straße to rest, but realizing his true intentions, she skillfully declined. Kürten calmly agreed and offered to take Budlik to a hotel, but instead he lured her into Grafenberg Forest. There, he attacked Maria Budlik. When she started screaming, Kürten released her and allowed her to leave. Lucky to escape, Budlik ran to the police station to report the crime, prompting an immediate investigation and manhunt for Peter Kürten. Realizing he could no longer escape, Kürten confessed everything to his wife, Auguste Scharf. He admitted that he was the vampire of Düsseldorf and detailed his attacks. Wanting to secure a future for his wife, Kürten advised her to report him to the police to claim the reward money. On May 24, 1930, August Scharf followed her husband's advice and led the police to a local church, where Kürten surrendered. To everyone, Kürten was a kind, gentle neighbor who loved his wife, known for his image as a model husband. They could never have imagined that Peter Kürten was actually a serial killer. On April 13, 1931, Kürten stood trial in Düsseldorf, recounting all his attacks in an emotionless tone. He explained that his attacks on girls aged 8 to 15 were influenced by witnessing his father abusing his sisters. In the end, Peter Kürten felt no remorse for his crimes. He received 9 death sentences for murder and violent assaults. Kürten was executed by guillotine on July 2, 1931, in Cologne, Germany. The case's closure received widespread public approval. Many believed this punishment was entirely justified. The victims' families expressed grief but felt some relief, knowing that justice had been served. Thank you for following this story. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss more shocking and mysterious cases. Remember, no matter how terrifying the truth is, it must be told to ensure justice is upheld.